Your lesson for science is properties of soil, and it is using your science Stemscopedia workbook. Page 33 to page 36. Okay, properties of soil. All right, it says you and your family are taking a vacation or driving a long way. You drive through a few different states along the way. When you stop in the first state, you observe that the soil is dark and rocky. In the next state, you find reddish, smooth soil. A few hours later, you stop in a state that has sandy, rough soil. Earth has many types of soil. Soil is a vocabulary word, contains broken up or weathered rocks. It also contains broken down living material. As you saw on your trip, soil is different from place to place. What are some of the properties of soil? How can you tell apart different types of soil? How does soil help plants to grow? Those are the questions we're going to answer in your lesson. So the first one is on properties of soil. What are some properties? If you look at a handful of soil, what properties would you observe? You could rub the soil between your fingers to figure out the texture. Some soil is grainy and rough, other soil smooth and silky. You can also observe the particles in the soil, and particles are small pieces of rock and other materials found in soil. You can also observe color in the soil. It might be brown, orange, tan, or another color. One other property of soil is the ability to retain or keep water. So those are the 4 properties of soil: the texture, the particle, the color, and its ability to retain water. Now we're going to look at those 4 properties. So particle size. Particle size, there are many different sizes of soil particles. Gravel is the largest particle in soil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out page 36 and fill out the organizer at the same time that we are reading about each property. So we're talking about gravel, and this one is the particle. This one's the first one, particle size. Gravel is the largest particle of soil. Sand is smaller than gravel. So here on our chart, what is the particle size? Sand is smaller than gravel, because we're looking at the column for particle size. All right. Then the third kind of particle is the next kind is silt, and that is smaller than sand. So on silt, right here, it already says smaller than sand. The smallest kind is clay. So here we're going to put that clay is the smallest, or let's put smaller than silt. And here you will notice that it gives you a little reference that gravel is being compared to a basketball. It says if a particle of gravel were the size of a basketball, then sand would be the size of a baseball, silt could be the size of a golf ball, and clay would be the size of a marble. So I am going to draw those 4 right here. So gravel is the size, or if it's being compared to a basketball, sand is being compared to a baseball, silt being compared to a golf ball, and clay being compared to a marble. So you will see that it goes from largest to smallest. Okay? All right, so now let's look at texture, the second property, texture. So soil that has gravel in it feels rough. So the soil that has gravel feels rough and rocky. And you will see that in our organizer, it already says that gravel is rocky. Sandy soil feels gritty. So here in our organizer, sand, we're going to put that it feels gritty. And gritty, it's like if you would get the sand from the beach, and that is what gritty feels, like small little pieces of rock. The next kind of soil with silt feels very smooth. And our organizer already has smooth for silt under texture. And clay, let's see what the texture for clay is. Clay feels smooth and a little sticky. So clay feels smooth and sticky. All right, so our third property is going to be color. Let's look at the color for gravel. And here's our third property, color. Soils come in many colors. Some soils are dark and brown. Soils that are dark and brown usually have some materials from plants and animals that have died and broken down. Orange and red colored soils contain clay. Gray soils contain silt or gravel. Sandy soils have a light brown color. So the color for gravel, brown, gray, and black. It is the dark colors because of the dead plants and animals, and it also says that gray soils contain silt or gravel, and gravel is right there, so we needed to add the color gray. Sand was light brown, and silt is beige, which is a shade of brown, to black. It could be any colors from that spectrum. Clay was orange or red. All right, so our fourth property is the ability to retain water well. Does it hold water? That's what that means. Does it hold water? So for that, we're going to turn the page. And ability to retain water. Water passes through some soils. Soils with lots of gravel or sand do not retain water very well. Imagine if you had rocks or sand, and water is just going to go right straight through it. Okay? Water slips past the large gravel and the sand particles, but water sticks to clay particles. And so soils with clay can retain a lot of water. Soil with silt also retains water well. So let's go ahead and look at our organizer. And again, our organizer is the last page. It's on page 36. So gravel, does it retain water? No, it does not retain it very well, because gravel is just rocks. Water goes right through past the rocks. Sand also does not retain it very well. Imagine if you are pouring water in sand, and if you're at the beach, you pour water in the sand, and it goes right straight through the sand. It doesn't even leave a puddle. All right, silt. Silt, it had on there that it also retains water well. So yes, but not too much. Now clay, it says too well for many plants. Clay is just like the clay that we're used to, that has a lot of water. It's wet, it's sticky, and that is not good for plants. So let's see. So now we have this whole organizer completed. You can always pause the video to finish answering all of this question, all of these, the chart on page 36. All right, so on what do you think on page 34, it says, you are studying the soil in your background. You notice an area of your backyard that has rocky looking soil. Most of the particles in the soil are larger than grains of sand. The particles are gray and they're larger than sand. You observe that the soil feels rough. How would you classify it? This would be gravel. It describes gravel because it's larger than sand. It's rough. And it's gray. And if we look at our chart, which one was larger than sand? Gravel. It's large, it's rocky, it was rough, and it's gray. All right, so what properties allow soil to support plants, the growth of plants? So let's look to see which ones are the best. Plants grow better in some soils than others. Good soil has nutrients. We already know that gravel and sand do not have nutrients. It has to also retain water, but also has to drain it well, because you don't want all the water to stay in the soil and drown the plant. Soil with gravel and sand does not retain water well. Plants growing in this type of soil must be able to survive without much water. Gravel and sand also do not provide many nutrients for growing plants. This is why desert plants usually are smaller plants growing in rich soil, are usually smaller than plants growing in rich soil. Desert plants do not get enough water or nutrients to grow big and tall. So gravel and sand are not good soils, types of soils for planting. All right, so soil with clay has some nutrients, but the soil keeps too much water for many plants because it's clay, it's wet, it's sticky. Water does not pass easily through clay. Too much of it sticks around. Plants growing in soil with lots of clay, they can drown. Silt has many nutrients. It is also good at retaining water, but not too much water. So silty soils are good for farming. The best soils for farming are usually the mixtures of particle types. So the mixtures, that is all of the types of soil: gravel, sand, silt, and clay. If you get them all together, they can drain the water, they can retain the water, all of them can work together, and those are the ones that are the best soils for farming. Adding sand or gravel to clay or silt can help it drain better. Adding silt to a sandy soil contributes nutrients and helps the soil retain water. Farmers and gardeners carefully study the soil in their fields and gardens. They make sure that their plants are growing in the best soils possible. All right, so on the next page, we're going to look at this section. Look out. Broken down rocks and decaying living things are not the only parts of soil. Soil also contains water and air. Plants need air and water to survive. Air in the soil gives plant roots room to expand and grow. Plants use water for photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is the process that plants use to make their own food. Without water in the soil, plants would not be able to make their own food. And here on the photograph, it says the roots in the plant have some, and you will see right there, they have room to grow because the soil contains air spaces. The plant also gets water and nutrients from the soil. All right, and on the last page, It is your organizer, and again, here is your organizer that you can pause the video to complete. And until next time.